Welcome back to St. Joseph, Missouri and Missouri Western State University. It is day 2 in pads for this Kansas City Chiefs training camp, the 63rd in franchise history. But how do you take training camp up a notch on the second day in pads? You bring in a Pro Bowl quarterback who could throw for 4,000 yards in his sleep. We bring in old number 10, Trent Green, to join us here on this live stream to start the show. And Trent, it's awesome to have you here. How excited are you to be back? Football's back, and this team, there's a vibe around these guys.
Well, first off, Mitch, it's great to be here, Matt. It's great to be here. And yeah, football's back. I think that's the thing that everybody's excited about, and what we've been anticipating and waiting for is the fact that football is back. Pads, so now football is really back the last 2 days, and they'll get a third day tomorrow to throw the pads on. But I think there has to be great anticipation about what lies ahead for the Chiefs this season. I know I'm excited about broadcasting the preseason games again, and really looking forward to that and getting to know this team. It's a very young team. You and I talked about it before going on air, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of youth on that side. We still have youth on the offensive line. You know, those guys are another year older, Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. So seeing them mature another year and the development that they have, and the new wide receivers. You know, there's a lot to be excited about this team. And I think the thing that I like, I know as a player, if I was a player, I like when people are talking about other teams, right? And it seems like this offseason, everybody around from a national media standpoint has talked about the other teams in this division, right? Denver going out and getting Russell Wilson, and, you know, the Chargers, all the additions that they've made on the defensive side of the ball, and, you know, Oakland, what they did with Devontae Adams. And you know, it's great that they're talking about other teams, but don't forget now. Everybody keeps forgetting, and maybe that's giving the Chiefs a little bit of an edge. You know, maybe they feel like they're being slighted. You know, they have hosted 4 straight conference championships. It's never been done before.
That's pretty good.
Since the merger, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's there's a lot on this team. There's a lot of pride on this team. So I think if I'm a veteran player and I'm coming back and I know what the national narrative is, that's even getting me more fired up and excited to get things going and just to try and prove people wrong.
You mentioned the new wide receivers. I want to ask you about that because that's been one of the major storylines of this offseason, bringing in guys like Juju, MVS, drafting Sky Moore. It obviously takes reps to build that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, but as a former quarterback, what all goes into that, building that rapport with new receivers?
Well, I think it's a little bit different now than what it used to be. You know, the offseason program's different. Players don't have to be here as much as what they had to do in the past. The mini camps, the OTAs, all those things. It's important from a quarterback standpoint, and I know Pat did this, to get together with your receivers. In the old days, it was always, you know, right around Arrowhead. It was at the practice facility, it was out on the practice fields, because that's where everybody stayed in the offseason. Now with the way everybody's spread out, you know, Pat did a great job bringing in the new guys, the young guys, working with them in the offseason, getting that chemistry. Chemistry is a major thing, and especially in this offense that Andy Reid runs and Eric Bieniemy runs and Matt Nagy runs, it's about that chemistry and timing, understanding what adjustments the receiver is going to make. That's why Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have such a great rapport. That's why Tyreek Hill, when he was here, they had such a great rapport because they knew they could make those adjustments on the fly. Patrick already knew by their body language where they were going to go and where to put the football. I had that type of relationship with Tony Gonzalez. I had that type of relationship with Eddie Kennison and Dante Hall. I understood when they gave me a certain move, the defense may not know, but I could just tell because of all the countless reps. You know what they're going to do and what type of movement they're going to have. And so I think that's an important part of it, and Patrick has done those things.
My first game I ever remember listening to for the Chiefs was in 2003. It makes me feel like I'm 2 years old, I know. But it was that game against the Packers when you found Eddie in the end zone in overtime. Just amazing. I still hear Mitch's call in my head. But speaking
Bow
of
Wow Joe, or that corner was out there, we're going after this dude. It's over.
That's
right.
Exactly. Never forget it.
Bye.
But speaking of Wisconsin, it's hot here today.
Yes.
All your training camps were in River Falls, Wisconsin. I'm curious what camp was like for you back in the day and how it kind of compares to this.
Well, it's quite a bit different. You know, when the NFL instituted all the new rule changes as far as contacts, no two-a-days, you know, padded practices are numbered, the amount of contact you can have, all of that stuff is different. And I know all my linemen right now. You know my guy Casey Wigman right now. If he's watching this, he's going to be like, damn quarterbacks talking about pads and practices. So Casey, I apologize.
With
but
the yellow jersey on,
It was much different in terms of you know how much we were in pads, how much hitting actually went into it. And and it definitely wasn't as hot as what it is in St. Joe. Now, we had our hot days. It could get hot up in River Falls, but it wasn't the sustained heat that they're having to endure now. And I think overall the rule changes have been great for the NFL. I think longevity for the players in their careers and what life after football is going to be like, I think all these rule changes are great. But the physical part of playing the game, you can only get when you're in pads like they were today.
Trent, you got a unique perspective because you're inside the kingdom. The preseason games, you get us a lot during the regular season, but you also see the league. You see all 32 teams. You do a lot of those games. Travis Kelce, we're going to feature him right now. He has had 4 miles worth of receiving in the last 6 years. I feel like we all underrate Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Just how brilliant is Travis Kelce?
Well, looking through my notes, trying to get ready to come up to training camp, get ready for the preseason, and going over some of the stats. Travis Kelce, and I know you know this, 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. So 6 1,000-yard season is double of what any other tight end in NFL history has. And he's done it 6 consecutive seasons. So the durability, the consistency, you and I have talked about this, playing in the NFL, being average in the NFL, being good in the NFL, and then being great and being an all-timer, that comes from consistency and performance, and that's exactly what Travis Kelce is and what he's done. When you look at 100-yard games, he's 2 behind Rob Gronkowski, 1 behind Tony Gonzalez, and he's nowhere near the amount of games that those guys have played. So the numbers that he's been able to put up, the combination we talked a little bit ago about he and Patrick Mahomes, just that chemistry, it's phenomenal what he's done and continues to do. And I know, a lot of Chiefs fans are hoping that continues for a lot more years. I love the fact that they recently redid his contract.
Yep.
You want to keep him happy. You want to keep him here. He said all the right things. He wants to be a lifetime Chief, and I think all those things are going to happen. But the performance that he's put up at these, throughout his career is phenomenal.
We're going to let you go down to the field. I know they're beckoning you down there, but while you do that, Matt, you had a chance to catch up with the best tight end to ever play in the National Football League, and it's not even close. Here's the interview with Travis Kelce.
All right, I'm down here with Travis Kelce, and Travis, this is year 10 for you. It's camp number 10. What's your motivation like going into this season and your energy going into this
More
camp?
than ever, man. More than ever. You just got to keep finding a way to love this game and to come out here and play hard for the guys next to you. And we got a good group of guys this year. We got a fun turnover of new faces, and right now everybody's working their tail off. And today was definitely one of those dog days in the heat.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, first day in pads, of course, it's like 100 degrees out here. Pads are tough with this heat. It's the first time you guys have been in pads since the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
How'd you feel out there today?
Just a little bit of heavy legs. I mean, everybody's working through it, though. It's camp. So once you get in the grind mode of camp, you realize the type of work ethic that we have here and how Coach Reed trains us, and we trust it, man. We trust it all the way through the year that he's going to take care of our bodies, and we got to do our maintenance off the field. And it's just, it's a grind, man. So once you get into your whole mental game and really work the physical and the mental game, it makes you better, man. You just got to enjoy it.
One of my favorite stories in this camp is Jody Fortson. Now, he has the quad injury right now, assuming he'll be okay. What have you seen out of Jody this offseason program and this camp as he comes off that Achilles injury?
It's been fun to see him just work, man. He's a workhorse, and that's kind of where he is right now. He ended up finishing a play 80 yards downfield and tweaked a little something, and that's just the kind of guy he is. All he knows is go, put the pedal to the metal and fly around, and it's fun to see him grow. It's fun to see Noah grow in the room as well, and and then Blake Bell making plays when he can. We got a strong tight end group this year.
Want to ask you about the receivers as well. A lot of new faces in the receiver room. How have you seen that chemistry grow between Patrick and guys like Juju, MVS, and Sky Moore?
It's once you set the tempo as a leader, as an offense, that's what Pat does. He sets the tempo of meeting expectations every single day, every single week. And once you fall into that, you can have fun with it, because that's what 1-5 does, man. He brings the energy and he makes it enjoyable. And we just keep finding ways to work through things. A lot of it is just getting reps out here. And Juju, MVS, all the new guys are definitely getting all the reps they can.
Go let you cool off. Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, guys, man. Go Chiefs.
Amazing. And he's so hyper-focused for this training camp. He said he's kind of rediscovered his love for football. But when you look at what he's done if he has a 100-yard receiving game in the playoffs, the next one will tie Jerry Rice for all time with 8 100-yard receiving games in the postseason. When you look at his yards and touchdowns in the postseason, truthfully, only Julian Edelman and Jerry Rice are better right now, and he's moving up the charts. There's no tight end there, I mentioned. Those are wide receivers. This is a unique person that is playing football here for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's just ridiculous, and we're so used to it that I think we've gotten used to it like it's normal, but it's not. We've never really seen this kind of player in National Football League history. We probably never will again. And if you think about what he's accomplished in his career, Trent mentioned this, 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He has 7,269 receiving yards since 2016. Nobody has more. Not tight ends, not wide receivers. Nobody has more. And his 565 receptions since 2016 are the second to only Devontae Adams. He's only one of 2 players since 2016 to have at least 1,000 receiving yards every single year. The other guy is Mike Evans. We know Travis Kelce is the best receiver in the NFL, but I would argue he's also the best tight end in the NFL, but I'd argue he is the best wide receiver in the NFL as well. He's remarkable.
Matt, all these comparative names are wide receivers. So, and he's many times, a third of the time, the Chiefs will use him as an ISO Y. He'll line up as a wide receiver, can run every receiving route on the tree in the Andy Reid playbook. There are 6 tight ends in this camp. Let's go through them quickly. The people know about Blake Bell, 8th year, still no receiving touchdowns in the regular season. People remember his postseason touchdown against Houston in the run to Super Bowl 54 championship. But to me, and not to slight Blake Bell here, but Jody Fortson, who's missed the last couple days with a quad injury, becomes even a more intriguing story, if you will, about potential for this team, because we saw him come alive last year in the regular season, and then he hurt his Achilles in the game at Washington.
And the good news on that quad injury is yesterday Coach Reid said it's not a big deal. They're giving him a few days just to rest that quad, but he'll be back out here soon enough. Jody is one of my favorite stories to follow in this camp because really paid his dues on the practice squad for 2 years, was the best story of camp last year, making this team, earning a spot on this team, and as you said, was really coming alive there before getting hurt prior to week 7. Had touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, looked really good, had that 27-yard reception against the Commanders. Of course, he ends up tearing his Achilles, but he's fought back now, and with the exception of that quad, which he hurt just a few days ago, he's been a full go in practice and throughout the offseason program and has looked really good. He's excited to be back. And when you talk about a guy who's a 6'6", 240-pound tight end who really was a wide receiver not too long ago, defenses aren't going to know how to defend that guy, especially when Travis Kelce is also out there on the field. So super excited for Jody. Let's get him back here in a few days from that quad and see what he can do.
Yeah, we talked about Kelce and his incredible statistics, but he needs some help. And Blake Bell can give that. Also, Jody Fortson can give that with wide receiver skills, much like Kelce. And then Noah Gray comes into this picture here, too. 6 tight ends on the roster right now. You and I expect 4 to make this roster. Chiefs will play a lot of 3 tight ends. They'll play some 4 tight ends. We've even seen them do that. But the 3 tight ends, if you have a receiver like Fortson and Kelce, you still have the skill set of a wide receiver. Noah Gray's interesting. 10 catches, 10 targets all last year, just 7 catches for 36 yards. Had the touchdown in the one game. But this is a big year, a big camp for Noah Gray.
And I'll add, too, yeah, he didn't have a lot of offensive production last year, but he played in 16 games and played a ton on special teams. He was actually 4th on the team in special teams snaps last year with 278. The 3 guys ahead of him, Dorian O'Daniel, Marcus Kemp, and Armani Watts, what do those guys have in common? They're not here anymore. So Noah Gray is the most significant returning special teamer on this team, and that matters. The Chiefs have had the best special teams in the NFL since Coach Tobe got here in 2013 for a reason. It's because guys go out there and know what they're supposed to do, and Noah Gray knows what he's supposed to do on special teams. That's very important. But this guy was also one of the best players in Duke history coming out of school in terms of pass catchers. We know he can catch the football, very sure-handed receiver. If he gets more reps in this offense, needs to make the most of it. But Noah Gray's special teams value is really remarkable here for the Chiefs.
2 other tight ends in the room. Jordan Franks, who actually has had some moments out here in training camp, been in the league since 2018. He's been with Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and Cleveland. And then also Matt Bushman, who's brought into the league by the Raiders, tight end out of BYU. Now let's jump into the running backs as we close out this live stream. And again, thanks to your interview with Travis Kelce and also with Trent Green. To get perspective on the whole league and then to look at the Chiefs' kingdom from the inside out, no better person to do it than Trent Green.
Well, Trent's like my quarterback, right? I grew up watching the 2003, 2004, 2005 Chiefs. So we're used to seeing Patrick Mahomes around here. We're buddies with him. But seeing Trent Green, I get kind of starstruck whenever I see him. I'm like, that's my guy growing up. Same with like Dante Hall and Eddie Kinnison, Tony Gonzalez, all those guys. And you hope when you meet those guys, they're great, you know? And the best thing about Trent is he is better than great. He's the best guy I've met. So awesome having Trent here, and can't wait to do the preseason games with him coming up here soon.
An awesome family, too. Julie, Janelle, all of them. Great folks in the Green family. Now let's go talk about running backs here. We're going to break these down into 3 groups: who you know, who you need to know, and then who you're going to get to know. Okay, so let's start with who you know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon. Both guys have been very productive. McKinnon really came alive last year in the playoffs. When you look at what he did with 34 postseason carries, 48 touches in the postseason. And with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're seeing him kind of be rejuvenated here. It's just a matter of CEH being healthy.
Well, let's start with how Clyde started last season, because he was tremendous. So he had some of the most rushing yards in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the season. He ranked 7th in the league with 291 rushing yards, had back-to-back 100-yard games before suffering that knee injury in week 5 that basically derailed his season. He came back a bit later on in week 12, but then got hurt in week 16, but then came back in the playoffs and was really good. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry on 13 postseason attempts and 2 postseason games, 3 rushes of 10 or more yards in the playoffs. So we know what Clyde can do if he's healthy. Those injuries were kind of fluke injuries as well. And you know what? I really respected how Clyde bounced back from that fumble against the Ravens early in the season and the one against the Chargers the following week. Didn't let him get down on that. So I respected that about Clyde. Big year for Clyde here coming up. And Jerick, how great is it having him back? If you look at his numbers from last year, they don't tell the story at all, because you mentioned it. He was so good at the very end for the Chiefs in the postseason and in the final few weeks of the regular season. He was absolutely awesome, a real spark plug for this offense. Great seeing him back here with the Chiefs.
We've seen Clyde do it. 138 yards against Houston in his debut in 2020, and then the 161 against Buffalo later that season. So Clyde's had his moments, so has McKinnon. Now, the guys you need to know, one you might know and another one you probably don't know. But let's start with a guy you might know, because he was effective in Tampa Bay's run to Super Bowl 55 and actually had almost 70 yards against the Chiefs in that game. But it's Ronald Jones Jr. Now, why these two guys are important, because they bring girth to the offensive running back playroom. Maybe the most since Damian Williams left this team after 2019, after the 2020 season, I should say. But when you look at these two guys, Ronald Jones Jr. has been very effective. He was a workhorse in Tampa Bay's run to Super Bowl 55. Let's start with Rojo, because we've seen him as a receiver and as a runner in camp show that he is bringing something to the room, and it's mainly a blend, well, of power and finesse.
I love 2 things about Rojo. First is experience. This guy has a ton of experience for a young player. Former 2nd-round pick, had more than 2,000 rushing yards and 19 total touchdowns in 55 games, 25 starts for Tampa. Only 2 years removed from basically a 1,000-yard campaign. Had 978 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns in that 2020 season you mentioned. Averaged 5.1 yards per carry that year. Pretty good last year, more of a backup role behind Leonard Fournette, but still effective. I mean, he averaged 4.2 yards per carry. But he's really effective between the tackles. And the Chiefs have kind of been looking for that for a while. Darrell Williams was kind of that player. But in that 2020 season, Rojo had 712 yards on 123 attempts between the tackles, averaging 5.8 yards per carry. We knew all these things about him already, but you mentioned the pass-catching ability. He caught a beautiful deep pass just a few days ago here in camp, and we're like, oh, wasn't aware you could do that as well. So excited to see what he can do in Coach Reid's offense.
Yeah, his yards per carry, when you look at his years in Tampa Bay, 4.2, 5.1, 4.2. We also saw him in short yardage out here, and he becomes a weapon. You mentioned between the tackles, 3rd and 2, 2nd and 1. The Chiefs need that in the running back room. Now, a guy you may not know about. During draft weekend, everybody's fired up for the first round on Thursday night. Friday, hey, it's the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and everybody kind of goes to sleep and does stuff on Saturday. The 7th round just kind of happens. Maybe not this year for the Kansas City Chiefs, because wearing number 10, get used to a running back wearing number 10, is Isaiah Pacheco, a 7th round draft pick out of Rutgers. He truthfully is one of the stories of this camp. If the Chiefs are playing tonight, he is your number 1 kickoff returner. He gives you a little bit of a Nile Davis. He's 218 pounds and runs a 4.37 40. I don't know why he lasted to the 7th round. Highly productive at Rutgers. Go back and watch the 4-minute offense against Syracuse when they've got to run the clock out, and Pacheco just said, I'm taking the game, put it on my shoulders. But pay attention now for the next month to number 10 in the running back room, Isaiah Pacheco.
Going into draft weekend, we asked Brett Veach for his thoughts on the draft, and he said there's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher taken in the 7th round. Now, probably not this season for Isaiah Pacheco, but we knew at that point Brett's probably taking a running back, and he did. He got his guy in Isaiah Pacheco. Really excited about this kid. So the size-speed combination that you alluded to, he's 5'11", 215 pounds, who runs a 4.37 40-yard dash. That was tied for the fastest among all running backs at the combine. He can really fly, but with that speed, with that size, it's really unique. Lance Zierlein from NFL.com said he plays the game like a race car with no brakes. His feet never stop moving. So excited for all those reasons, but also it's the little things, pass blocking. Pass blocking is simple for a running back. You have to be willing to do it. Because if you can be willing to do it, you can probably learn it if you have the physical gifts, and I think he does. But when he was first introduced to the kingdom, his first press conference after he was drafted, what would you talk about if you were him? You talk about can't wait to score, can't wait to have a bunch of rushing yards. One of the first things he said was, I'm so excited to protect Patrick Mahomes. He was thinking about that already. And Dane Brugler from The Athletic, one of the best draft analysts out there, said that he has a lot of upside in pass blocking skills. So very excited for the whole package from Pacheco. And in the kick return game, you mentioned Niall Davis, because we haven't had a running back with the size and speed combination like Pacheco since Niall.
And he's not had an easy life growing up, but he has really been persevered. He's had to persevere through a lot of some family issues and family tragedy.
Oh, yeah.
But he was great at Rutgers with 18 touchdowns. The other running backs, there are 7 on the roster. The other 3 to mention, Derek Gore, you remember him, go back and watch his touchdown against the Raiders. And then Michael Burton, a fullback who is used a lot for the Chiefs, not only in short yardage but in special teams. And then Tayon Fleet Davis, if you're a Maryland Terrapin fan, you know about him. But that's the tight ends and the running backs. Thanks to Trent Green. Thanks with your interview to Travis Kelce. We're going to continue to have live streams from training camp here over the next collection of weeks, but now becomes a little bit of the dog days because tomorrow will be a 3rd straight day in pads.
These guys, until yesterday, hadn't been in pads since the AFC title game. Had been a very long time because you can't wear pads during the offseason training program. Got the pads on yesterday, wearing them again today. Of course, it's the 2 hottest days of camp when the pads come on, but they're powering through it and they're getting better, and that's the important thing right now.
Like I said on the stage at the Red Rally here in St. Joe, you can doubt this team, you can detest this team, but you're going to have to deal with this team, and they're showing that here in St. Joe.